Morning. I'd like to start off and thank everybody for joining us on the other side of the screen conducting a virtual conference. My name's Kevin Silva. I'm the president of Opticians Association of Massachusetts, and I'm here with my buddy Blair.
Hi, everybody. My name's Blair Wong, and I'm the executive director for the OAM, and welcome to this course.
So this course is to help state associations to put together, conduct a virtual conference from A to Z. And so we want to help state associations stay in touch with their members through virtual conferencing. And so we decided to put this together for you guys today. But before we get started, we want to learn a little bit about you all. So I'm going to throw up a quick poll question. So why don't we start off with poll number 1. Okay, poll number 1 should be on your screen. And that question is, are you a state association leader? Yes or no? We'll leave that up for a little bit, Blair. So there, we have some people answering the polls.
All right. Can you tell how many people are in the room?
I can. It looks like we are joined by about 15 people right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So if you haven't answered the poll, just click. We want to learn a little bit about you guys before we get started today. So that should be good. Can we share the answers? Okay, Blair. So we got some information here. Are you a state association leader? We have 36% of people said yes, and 64% said no.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we're gonna throw up a couple of polls. Just have a couple of quick questions for you guys. Why don't we put up poll number 2 to get started here? Okay, poll number 2 should be up. Do you have any experience in planning and conducting live or in-person continuing education conferences or meetings? So basically, we want to know, have you ever planned an education meeting for your state association for the people who are on their state association? So obviously in person in the past, but a lot of states have transitioned to virtual. So
I think also what we want to cover in this course, if you have had experiences in orchestrating live in-person events, you're probably wondering, what are some of the similarities that we can continue to offer, even though it's going to be transitioning into a virtual type of environment? And that's certainly something that we considered in our own state association.
mm-hmm.
We have 2 live meetings a year. And when the pandemic hit in March, we had a meeting scheduled for April, just about 6 weeks later. And we quickly canceled it. And while we gave ourselves an extra month and a half to plan a virtual meeting, we were thinking about how can we run a virtual meeting that would have some of the same familiar features of our live in-person events.
Exactly. So we have some answers here. 73% of people have been involved in conducting either live in-person education meetings or continuing education conferences.
Great.
Good. So we have some experience in the room.
Exactly. And so one of the things to keep in mind with our presentation today is how can we translate those experiences that you've created for the attendees to your meetings into a virtual type meeting. Okay, great.
Great. And why don't we go through another one here, Blair,
Sure.
Because I think this one is pretty important. Let's put up poll number 3. And so this one is more on the virtual end of it. Have you been a host for a Zoom type of meeting for your work, family, or organization? I think if we asked the group this question a year ago, Blair, we would get significantly different answer than asking them today, a year or so into this COVID stuff. So
It's kind of strange, Kevin. We have a regular family Zoom every Sunday at 11.
Yeah.
Except for today, of course. And it really has helped the family to keep better in touch. You know, we have family all over the country, and it's pretty cool for us to catch up on a weekly basis like that.
Yeah.
So really, Zoom has changed, and you know, to have a great family experience through Zoom kind of encourages us to be able to try and create the same familiarity with a virtual education conference, some of the same features.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, a lot of the features in the conferences carry over. Some of them are a little bit more locked down when you're running a conference than maybe like what you would do with your family. And we'll go over those similarities and differences in a little bit. So it's actually split down the middle, Blair, 50-50. So we have 50% of people are familiar and 50% have never really been a host. So.
Okay.
And we'll just wrap it up with one more question here, getting to know you guys. Let's put up question number 4. So what is your goal today? Are you here to learn more about virtual conferencing? I have not conducted one of these virtual conferences and hoping to do so sometime this year, or I'm just here to learn a little bit and educate myself. So Blair and I we learned a lot this year, and I think we wanted to share some of our experiences with the group of conducting a virtual conference. And so we hope to help the group bring some of this information back to their state associations and would show that anybody can do it, and you can start small, start big, but it doesn't have to be too complex. And we want to get some of those maybe insecurities and fears, just settle them down and resolve them a little bit. So
I think also when we were faced with having to cancel our spring meeting, I was really encouraged that our board of directors really wanted to do everything we could to try and stay connected to our membership. We also had to have a virtual meeting in the fall as well. And if we had not taken this bold step to explore the possibilities of offering a virtual meeting, we would have gone a whole year without connecting with our members in the most important way that we normally do, and that is through our educational conferences. So, you know, Kevin and I, we care a lot about different state associations throughout the country, and we hope that this course is helpful to you if you are considering or just exploring the possibility, is this something that we could do in our state? Because we recognize that there may have been missed opportunities in the past year of not being able to connect with your membership.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. So we have some results here from the poll. 29% of people have already conducted some sort of virtual conference and want to learn more. 29% have not conducted a virtual conference and is hoping to do so at one point this year. And 43% are just here to explore and gain some education. So that's great. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Kevin, can you just quickly go over how they can put questions in the chat?
Absolutely.
And thank you for participating in the polling. This is certainly one way, we've already demonstrated one way in which our attendees can interact with the speakers during the meeting. And this is a really cool opportunity to have these different polling opportunities, different kinds of questions that our speakers share with the audience. We use polling to take attendance. We use polling so that attendees can kind of respond and let us know which credit, whether it be ABO or NCLE, if it's a duly certified course that they desire. So polling is a great opportunity for attendees to be able to interact, and also for us to create opportunities for them to interact with our speaker and our meeting in general.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? You want to create engagement. And so, and that goes for virtual conferences or breakout sessions like this. So we encourage everybody here today with us. If you highlight the bottom of the screen, you'll see a little Q&A button. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you like. We'll try to answer questions about conducting virtual education conferences as we go through our outline today. But we encourage you to ask questions. If you see somebody else ask a question that you're interested in answering, you can actually upvote it and give it a thumbs up. So please do so. If you have something you want to share, there's also a chat box there. But we want to see some questions coming through, and we hope to help you guys today as we go through. So what do you say, Blair? You want to kick it off? Let's start with before you can have a virtual conference, right? I think the one thing that we quickly realized back in March when all of this started was if we're not going to do an in-person meeting and we want to go virtual, how do we do it, right? Like, what platform are we going to use? How do we even do a virtual conference? So we quickly had to learn about the different platforms and the different medias out there to communicate with our members. So number one, most important thing, find a platform that both is going to be comfortable for you to use and comfortable and familiar for your attendees to use. And so those are examples like what we're using right now is Zoom. Blair, I think we quickly realized Zoom was becoming a household name and becoming the sort of go-to software for a virtual meeting. But there's other ones out there, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, WebEx offers virtual conferencing. But us at OAM, we figured out that Zoom was the best platform.
I think also many of our directors were a little bit familiar with Zoom because of Ben Franklin, and some of us had been using it to teach different sessions for our students. And so because of that experience and the fact that we only had 6 weeks to kind of train ourselves, we went with what we were most comfortable with and we were most familiar with. And we did look at probably 3 or 4 different options, right, and we kept on coming back to Zoom.
Yeah.
So
I think the big selling point for Zoom was that they offered a Zoom webinar. And so I think that's a great place to start. And this was the reason why we selected Zoom as our go-to platform. So most people are familiar with Zoom meetings, right? That's what you use when you want to meet up with your friends or family and chat and see each other, just sort of like a normal video chat. But Zoom has another feature called Zoom Webinar, which is very similar to meetings, but a little bit more, the host has a little bit more control over how the people in the Zoom room communicate. So you can actually in Zoom Webinar sign your attendees' roles. And so you're going to have your host and your co-host. Those are the people in the background really controlling the meeting as the meeting is live. You can have panelists, which are going to be like your guest speakers. So Blair and I are actually panelists right now. So people presenting, think of them as the speakers that would attend your normal conference. And then you have your attendees. So speakers have rights to video and audio. Attendees are essentially in view-only mode. And so they're there to watch the conference. They cannot turn on their microphones and they cannot turn on their video, very similar to the attendees here with us right now. And so when we found this feature and we saw the price point was right for us, and the feature set and the ease of use, and the fact that Zoom was becoming the go-to software. That's how we made our decision. And so Zoom webinar was where we kicked it off. Anything else you want to add there, Blair?
No, I think we're good on that.
Yeah. And then of course we'll talk about this today, whether or not you hire a professional company to help you with this, or you're going to do it on your own. And we're hoping to show you that it is possible for it to be a DIY if somebody wants to take ownership. So that brings us to pre-conference, right? Getting the conference going, getting started. You selected Zoom webinar, you selected your platform, and now so it's setting up. So pre-conference, the Zoom platform was very easy to set up. Basically, you go through a list of options to set up your Zoom webinar or your virtual conference. You pick a date, and then you pick all the options and features you want in that Zoom webinar. You select approximately how many attendees you think are gonna come to your meeting. And it's broken down. I think the two that we were really looking at were either 100 attendees or 500 attendees. And those two options were at different price points. So the Zoom webinar feature is an add-on feature that you would add to your organization's Zoom account for an additional price. Off the top of your head, Blair, do you remember approximately what we paid for the Zoom webinar feature?
I believe it was $249.
Yeah, and that gave us access to upwards of 500 attendees. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah,
Right.
we were going to be cutting it too close at 100, and we felt that we didn't want to get nervous as we got closer to that 100. So we went to the 500 attendee level.
Right, exactly. And so
we probably spent about $500 on Zoom total because we wanted to have an opportunity to train ourselves and practice with it. So we got it for 2 months rather than 1 month.
So Kevin, there's a question there from Christy. Is that the yearly cost?
Christy, so that question is a great question. It's actually the monthly cost. So I believe they offer an option where you get a discounted rate if you pay for an annual Zoom webinar add-on, but we didn't feel the need to add it on annually, and we just decided to go month by month because really we figured 1 or 2 months before the meeting to set everything up, practice, and then the actual meeting itself, and then 1 month after. So I think we had it for about 2 months total, 2 to 3 months total. The monthly,
Kevin, I just checked. It was $149 times 2.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was $149 for 1 month, but we got it for 2 months, so we paid $300.
Great. And so yeah, I think for this sort of setup, the month to month was the best option for us. So great question there. It looks like we have a couple of questions coming in. Oh,
sure.
Yeah. Yes. We are. Somebody said we're too poor in Virginia. Okay. So moving right along. So once you select it, you set up all of your options and you pick a date. You have the choice of Zoom webinar also has a registration page, and they will set up a nice, you can set up your own nice registration page. They offer ways to customize it with your logo, and you can actually link it directly to your account's to your association's PayPal account. So you can direct your members to Zoom's registration page, and they can register right there, and any payments go through your association's PayPal account. Nice and easy. Big difference than on paper or what we did in the past, right, Blair?
Yeah, so we used to have attendees register to our website if they wanted to do that online. Or we also sent a registration form by paper out to all the licensed opticians in Massachusetts, either to a newspaper newsletter or just individual mailing.
Mm-hmm.
And then those would be written checks coming into our home office.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the startling differences about going virtual is that all of our registration was handled electronically through Zoom into our already existing PayPal account, which was linked to our website. So we didn't have any paper registrations at all to deal with.
Right.
And it was really streamlined and pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too, which was pretty cool, is as soon as an attendee did register, they got a automatic email confirmation and a PayPal receipt. So many times we will have attendees ask for a receipt so that they can submit it to their employer for reimbursement. And they would have to wait to the day of the conference and the receipt would be in their packet. And now they could get it electronically.
Yeah, instant. So instant payment to your association, instant receipts. It really streamlines a big process of going into the meeting. And then, just like any in-person meetings, you're going to promote and market your meetings. We found that social media and our newsletter was a great way to market it. And Zoom has features built into webinar where you can create individual links. So you can create a link that you use in your newsletter, a link that you use in your social media, and that way you can, Zoom will actually track where the traffic is coming from to see where your best return is. So if you can see like, oh, I need to spend more time marketing on social media because Zoom is telling me every time I put this link on social media, I'm getting X amount of clicks versus my newsletter, I'm only getting 1 or 2 clicks from the newsletter. So it actually gives you a lot of information in the back end, which is very useful. And you can focus your time on where you think is going to work best. Going into pre-meet, just wrapping up with pre-meeting, creating a registration deadline and continuously communicating with our members. We started getting a lot of frequently asked questions about how am I going to get my credits? How do I register? Do I have to use Zoom? So we started getting all these frequently asked questions, and we decided to email blast our members a list of frequently asked questions just to settle any nerves, because this is new for everybody, right? So our members had never attended an Opticians Association of Massachusetts virtual meeting before because we never had it. So we needed just a way to continuously communicate with them, tell them we're here to help them, really put them at ease. And we found that to be very useful.
That was great. We opened up the registration probably a month prior to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout those 4 weeks, they were getting regular updates from us about the meeting. We made some videos of speakers who were on our program and said, come to the meeting. This is the course I'm going to be talking about, kind of thing. We sent the frequently asked questions to them by email. So at least once a week, once somebody registered for our meeting, they were receiving some communication from us. Is this where I talk about the program, the actual schedule?
Yeah,
So
we're going to go right into that.
Oh, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So our meetings are always 7 hours long on a Sunday. We tend to have 5 tracks going on at the same time: an ABO track, an NCLE track, an ABO workshop track, an NCLE workshop track, and then we have something called OAM University, which is theoretical optical courses or business courses. And we just said there's no way that in this initial venture that we could have such a complex virtual meeting. So we decided to have one streamlined 7-hour meeting,
Mm-hmm.
one track.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was important for us to start simple and kind of grasp onto what we thought we could handle and not overdo it. overtax ourselves.
Sure.
So we had that 7-hour meeting. Attendees, when they signed up, would be signing up for all 7 courses. They saw the schedule. And because this was experimental, and I know there was a question or comment about affordability, that really was our cost for the meeting, the $350 or $300 that we spent for the meeting. There were no hotel costs, or we did have speaker costs, but we didn't have to pay for them to come to our meeting, to fly to our meeting or anything like that. So, and because it was the shutdown and it was really scary at the time, we kind of gave back to the opticians, and we decided to charge only $25 for the whole day.
Yeah.
Knowing that, having spent only $300 plus, I think all of the speakers actually donated their time for that program in the spring.
Yeah.
That we could recover the cost of the Zoom. That's all we really cared about at the time. So we made it really affordable for everybody.
Yeah. And I think it was a really great way to ease our members into our first virtual education meeting. So that sort of leads us right up to the day of the meeting. So far we've created a registration page. We've opened up registration to the members. You've marketed the meeting. So the day of the meeting, we found that we needed some team. We needed a team to help anything that could come up during the meeting. So we had our hosts, our teams that were the hosts and co-hosts. So I was one of the main hosts of the meeting, sort of controlling the video whenever a speaker was coming on and off. So you're going to need a main host. And then we had a tech team, if you will. So anybody who had questions, we had them, if they had any technical issues or questions about the meeting, to put that into the chat. And we really had the chat locked, so only people running the meeting could see the chat questions. So our tech team watched the chat for any sort of issues that may have come up in the meeting, while our hosts and co-hosts watched the Q&A section, just like we're watching the Q&A for any questions from you guys. And
it was for communicating to the lecturers.
Exactly, yeah.
If they needed to communicate because they were having a technical issue, they used the chat. We had probably 3 or 4 people from our board who were on the technical team. We also made our phone number available to the OAM headquarters, so that if they couldn't communicate to the tech team by chat because they lost their connection, our headquarter phone number was live for the entire day. So people, if they had a problem, could call into the headquarters, and then we put them on the phone with somebody directly from the tech team. So we had all of our bases covered on the day.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely important to create a small team, somebody running the meeting and somebody watching the moving parts of the meeting, like the chat and the Q&A. So we had our meeting set up, we had our host set up, and then that sort of brings us to what kept me up at night, is what is going to be on the screen at all times, right? So we need something on the screen. We need to create engagement. We don't want dead air. So Blair and I came up with an idea of having a waiting room greet attendees once they entered in our conference. We have our team set up. We hit go live on the meeting. Once you hit go live on Zoom webinar, anybody can come in. And we were actually, Blair, remember we were having like a quick meeting between us and the OAM members, and we hit go live, and then all of the attendees started coming in right away, right?
Yeah, it was really pretty cool. One of the things, we talk about our in-person meetings, and one of the things that we have is people coming into our meeting early and be in the lobby and kind of gathering together and kind of go to the registration table, pick up your packet, get your agenda set for the day. And so we created a virtual lobby for everybody to come into that was open half an hour before our meeting. And we had the frequently asked questions running. We had music greeting them. We had videos of our board members just saying hi. So there were a lot of things going on in the lobby. And we thought that was really important, so that as soon as somebody turned on their computer and connected to the meeting, they felt that, oh, whew, I'm here.
Yeah,
You know?
I actually, while you were saying that, Blair, I put up a sample of our
Great.
waiting room so people can see. So these slides were what people were greeted with. Like Blair mentioned, we had some sort of just calming music, and then these slides would just continuously run in loop. So people knew what to expect, you know, tips for the best experience in the day, how the chat worked if you're having technical issues, the Q&A to ask the speakers any questions, and how polling is going to work for taking attendance. We'll go over that next. And then just a general overview of the day. And so people knew what to expect. And so we created slides for the waiting room and slides in between all the speakers during like the 5-minute, 10-minute break in between the speakers. And then we also did something for lunch. So,
so it's kind of like a radio show where you never want to have dead air on the radio. Mm-hmm. And there was always something on the screen the whole day while people were in the conference, even in between classes.
Mm-hmm. We got a couple of questions before we move forward, Blair. So we have one. Have you hosted any other virtual conferences since your first one? If so, did you learn anything that was important to change from one to the next? So yeah, we started off with our spring conference. Great question. We started off with our spring conference, and then
that was June 7th.
June 7th, and then we felt like we learned a lot from the spring conference. So, and other state associations had heard that we put on a virtual education meeting, and so we started getting questions from other states, right, Blair? Surrounding states, and
especially Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, which were right around us. Although we did reach out to Michigan and some of the other states across the country who were interested. Mm-hmm. But it was concerning to us that our neighboring states they not only had missed their spring meeting, but they had canceled their fall meeting as well. Mm-hmm. And that they were going to go a full year without having any connection with their members. We already had our meeting planned for November. And so what we decided to do is make our Massachusetts meeting into a one meeting, which was Opticians of New England meeting. Mm-hmm. And what we did is we invited all the other surrounding state associations to share a regional virtual conference with us. And the reason that we extended our 1 month Zoom to 2 months is because we used the opportunity to have weekly meetings with leaders from the other state associations who were part of our conference from New England and train them on how to do exactly what we're doing today. Right. So it was an 8-month training program, mm-hmm. soup to nuts. Every week we showed them what we were doing to put together our meeting. Mm-hmm. They were part of every decision that we made and putting together the meeting. We also realized that, hey, with $25, we did great. We had 217 people attend the spring meeting. Yeah. So we definitely made a profit on that meeting, and we more than paid for the Zoom. And so we decided to charge $99 for the one meeting in November. And at that meeting, we got 362 attendees.
Yeah.
So it was really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it quickly showed us that virtual education is, in some format, is probably here to stay, because there's a great way to reach a larger audience at a reduced cost to the state association. And we had a great experience sharing our knowledge with the surrounding states. Yeah, absolutely. We learned a lot from the first one to the second one. Blair, we have one more question. This one's from actually a speaker of ours, Pete Hanlon. So we run
Hey,
into
Pete, great job at general session. Thank you.
We run into issues when we try to run video on any virtual platform. Any best practices are advisable to just avoid video in virtual meetings? Awesome question, Pete. I will answer a little bit about that. So a lot of the videos that we ran through my computer, and what I did, best practices is if you can avoid Wi-Fi and hardwire connect your computer like the old-fashioned way using the Ethernet cable to your router or modem, you're going to have the best signal. That was the most important thing to me. I'm actually doing that right now today to make sure I have a great signal and just avoid any spotty Wi-Fi mishaps. Number two, Zoom, when you share your screen, you actually have an option on the bottom there to optimize your screen share for video and audio. So it is an extra click after you hit the green share screen button. There is an extra click before you select your screen that you want to share that you just have to check. It's usually on the bottom left, and it will optimize your screen share for video. And it does smooth out the video, make it less choppy. So I would say have the video go through a dedicated person and make sure that person has the best internet connection possible, preferably hardwired, and then make sure you're optimizing the share of video optimizing the share for video. So great question.
Yeah, that really was one of our most important aspects of running the meeting was your dedication, Kevin, to being basically the moderator for the entire day. Kevin not only ran from his computer everything that was going on screen in between the classes, but we also had a speakers training. So all the speakers came to our training session. I think it was either the Thursday night or the Friday night before our weekend event. And they shared with Kevin all of their polling questions. So Kevin was the one who popped up the polling questions when called upon by the speaker. And we had several videos that we did play throughout the day as part of some of the courses, and they were all sent to Kevin ahead of time.
Yeah.
So the speakers didn't have to worry about it. All they had to do was during their presentation say, Kevin, I'm ready for the first polling question. And a lot of times the polling questions were related to the topic that people were covering, which was really cool. It was a great way to engage people. And also there were videos that they just call Kevin and say, Kevin, can you play the first video? And so that worked out wonderfully. So we didn't have any video glitches at all in our meeting.
Hey, Blair and Kevin and attendees, we have about 5 minutes left in this breakout.
Okay.
I'll give you a heads up there.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. I think one thing that's pretty important that we just touch upon, Blair, really quick, is the attendance polling and how we actually collect the information for ABO and NCLE.
Great. So at the beginning of each class, we put up an attendance poll, and that was up for, I guess, the first 8 minutes of the class, just as you would allow people coming into the room, to give them a credit up until the first 8 or 10 minutes into the class, and then you no longer can give out the credit. So we did the same thing with our attendance poll, and as soon as somebody clicked on the poll, they could minimize it and it would go off the screen. Otherwise, it would be take up their whole screen. So they couldn't miss answering the attendance poll. It not only took attendance, but in some of our courses, actually all of our courses said, would you like an ABO credit? Would you like an NCU credit? Or I don't need a credit was the third choice. And that created data for each of the classes. We also collected data from all of the question polls that lecturers shared. They each had 3 questions for each of their presentations. And from that data, we put together a list of not only how long somebody was in each course, but also which credit that they wanted. We had data from when they logged in first thing in the morning and when they logged off at the end of the day. So there was a lot of data collected from that information. From there, we put together summary reports and electronically sent them to each attendee of the credits that they had taken for that day. And we also sent the attendance list to the ABO and CLE so that they could update it on their ABO and CLE website.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would add is in a traditional meeting, a lot of the work is up front. It's front loaded, right? You prepare your speakers, you get everything ready, you get your credits ready for the meeting, you have the meeting. Once the meeting's over, your attendees are gone with the credits in their hand. What we learned with conducting a virtual meeting is a lot of the work actually moves to the back end of the meeting, right? So you do the registration, you have the meeting, but then post-meeting, you have all this data, all the polling data, all the activity data from the members in the meeting that Zoom provides to you, and it's pretty easy format, it's all Excel, but it's for all of your attendees, which credit they want, how long they were in there, and so you have to have a team for post-meeting to go through that data, organize it in a way that's easy to understand, and so you can submit these reports like Blair mentioned to ABO and NCLE and your attendees. So
it is a crazy amount of work. If you have, in June, we had 217 attendees. In November, we had 362. If you have a smaller type meeting, if you have less than 100, it's very manageable, that post-conference stuff. But you do have to be prepared if you have a larger meeting.
Blair, I think we're about to run out of time. Let me see. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot about using my Zoom account. Thank you. And I know, Kyle, am I right? Are we coming up on time right now? I just want to know before we.
You got about 2 minutes here, actually.
2
and
minutes.
I'll put up the slide and the link to go back to the main room. Okay,
great. I think, Blair, I think we hit a lot of the major points. Is there anything you want to summarize with before we?
I think 2021, we will be having a virtual meeting in the spring, and we're probably having a hybrid meeting if we're available, if we're allowed to go into the hotel in November. So I think you're right, Kevin. There's probably Zoom will have some connection to all of our meetings going forward, just because we're now able to reach opticians in areas of the state that we were never able to reach before.
Absolutely.
So we have a lot to learn in 2021 ourselves. And
you're gone, I think.
You're still talking.
Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Blair. I can't agree more. I think virtual conferencing is here to stay in some form or fashion.
If we can help anybody, please contact us at the Opticians Association of Massachusetts, or the OAA certainly is going to do their state leadership newsletter, and I'm sure they'll have some meetings related to this.